The next speaker is Bob Mison. Bob is another founding member of the Campaigns for Dark Skies. I can use this one. Maybe I should speak to the microphone. He is, of course, the author of the book on light pollution that's been on sale there in the hallway, and he's produced the fact sheet, Frequently Asked Questions, and that, in fact, is the title of his contribution this morning.
Thank you, Mark.
I'll give you 5 minutes plus a bit
of
questions.
Okay. Thank you. Well, this can be, I think, fairly brief. I'll try and catch up on some of that time for you, Mark, because John's covered quite a lot of the things I'm going to talk about. In your goodie bag, so kindly provided by this marvellous observatory up the road, you have a sheet. It's called Light Pollution FAQs. Now, I understand, of course, that I'm preaching to the converted in the case of many of you, but of course there are people here who want to learn a lot more about light pollution because they don't know quite as much as most of us, and there are also people perhaps who might like a very simple information sheet to give to people who ask about light pollution. And this, I hope, is it, because I've analysed letters, emails for the last 20 years which have been sent to me. It's very easy, isn't it, to do subject searches with emails, etc. And these are the 10 most commonly asked questions. It's great to be here on the island of Ireland. It's the first time I've ever been this side of the water. You can gather from my accent that I'm not actually local. And I have found the people tremendously friendly. This is something people said to me, "Oh, you'll love the people over there. They are so friendly." And they are indeed. In fact, my taxi driver from Belfast, he within 5 minutes was very charmingly trying to convince me of the correctness of his creationist views, and trying to convince me that all this marvellous universe that we live in was actually 6,000 years old. But, I mean, good luck to him. He was doing a great job, and he was a marvellous taxi driver. There's a terrible smell of Guinness around here. For those of you who weren't here yesterday... For those of you who weren't here yesterday, ask somebody who was about that. Yeah. The dark matter, as they call it. Yeah. And, yeah. Right, let's get down to this presentation because I want to whip through it quite quickly. That's a photo taken from one of the areas that John mentioned. I live in Dorset. I'm very lucky to live in Dorset. It's in the centre of southern England. It has one enormous city, Bournemouth and Poole. Most people think that Bournemouth and Poole are small seaside towns. They do, in fact, have a population of 500,000 people, and that causes a lot of sky glow. But you can go to other parts of the county, and this is a photo I took from the garden of a friend of mine who lives in a little village called Anstey. But even in my own back garden, in Wimborne, on the edge of that conurbation of 500,000 people, I have a good view of the Milky Way. I can see stars down to magnitude 5, possibly even fainter sometimes, because quite simply my council, my local authority, cares. They have fitted FCO, full cut-off lights which shine only downwards, the length of my street. And I can look up on a clear night when there aren't too many contrails about and see the wonders of the night sky. Good lighting really works. The right amount of light and only where needed is the motto of the BAA Campaign for Dark Skies. What are these frequently asked questions? Here they are. What is light pollution? Is it the opposite of heavy pollution? No. Why the fuss? It's an astronomer's problem, isn't it? What are you whinging about, as John said? Well, surely we can't turn all the lights off. This is ridiculous. Well, I should write to my MP. Don't we need light to prevent crime? Yes. How much energy does light pollution waste? A very common question. And you know, and I know, that the answer to this question is nobody knows. But we can have some very educated estimates of how much energy is wasted and how much money we are throwing away every night up into the sky. Is light nuisance against the law? Well, I can only speak for the United Kingdom because I don't obviously know much about the details of the laws and regulations in your own countries if you've come from abroad. But certainly this kind of thing could be translated and adapted for your own particular circumstances. So take it away with you and use it as you will. If we use downward-directed street lamps with a narrower cone of light, won't they have to be closer together? And you'll use more electricity. So these full cut-off lights are terrible things because you need more of them. Or do you? Surely lamps are designed by experts. What can we do personally to counter light pollution? Here am I, a poor, sort of uneducated person. I don't know anything about science and engineering and, what can I do? It's just beyond me. This is a complicated question. Where can I find out more about this? I'd love to know more about light pollution. Well, we know what it is. But even this simple question has a slightly more complicated answer than you might think. For example, what is it? It's light that goes up into the sky. No, it's not. Of course it's not. Light pollution is light that comes down from the sky. You wouldn't see it otherwise, would you? Light wasted above the horizontal scatters from particles and droplets, and it comes back. And so the first thing to say to people about sky glow is it's light going down, which is an interesting point, isn't it, really? So our view of the night sky is veiled by the very fact that our atmosphere is not clean and empty. We'd be in a very bad way if it were. It's full of aerosols and particles, pollen grains, sea salt that's crystallized out, volcanic debris, factory emissions, exhaust pipe debris, etc. And it's all up there, and it's causing the light to come down. So sky glow is light coming down. Stray light enters premises. Now, I won't use the term light trespass, because if you think about it, trespass, and Martin, our legal eagle on the front there, has told me lots about this. Trespass is an intention to sort of go into other premises, to cause problems in other premises. And nearly all bad lights are not really designed to do that. People don't design lights with a view to annoying other people. They just happen to do so. The fact that this light here is causing me some discomfort, the people who switched that on, angled it and operating it, they don't intend to annoy me. It just happens, doesn't it? And so I don't think we should call it light trespass, because it's not intentional, usually, that light goes into the wrong places. It is quite simply light nuisance, something that can be sorted and is not a deliberate act. Over-bright lights cause glare, and John's mentioned that, so I don't need to mention it again, the most safety-related aspect of light pollution. Surely only a minority of people is affected. What are you moaning about? And the answer is, of course, that if astronomers were the only people who ever see the night sky, well, it might be a valid point. But, of course, everybody has the right to see it. Everybody has the right to see their environment. And the fact that the night sky is the only part of the environment with no protection in law is something that really needs thinking about. People affected by light nuisance, glare, waste of energy and money are normally not astronomers. Surely we can't turn all the lights off. Well, of course, you will immediately get this from people who know that you're a light pollution person. And the simple fact is, of course, that campaigners do not, unless they're really quite rabid types, and I do know a few like that. I do have people who literally say, let's shine lasers at all the lights to switch them off. Let's buy crossbows and air rifles. They are serious, these people. And I say, well, I'm afraid the campaign can't recommend criminal damage, because that's what it is. And so we don't really want to turn off any necessary lights. But this brings us, of course, why is the word highlighted? This brings us, of course, to the fact that, what is a necessary light? One person's necessary light may be another person's nuisance light. And the thing is to try to define what we mean by this and to negotiate with those who have lighting. But the really important thing, perhaps, is to get it right in the first place. Preemptive action will always be a lot better than complaining about bad lights when they occur. Ian Phillips, the director of the Landscape Institute, said, "Too much lighting just happens. It's not planned." I know you'll agree with me. Just walk around any city or town and you will see the fact of this. So shielding, good design, sensitivity, get it right, especially before it's put in Keep your eye on local planning applications. Make sure you know what lights are going in and where. Don't let them creep up on you. But don't we need light to prevent crime? This is probably the biggest debate in the whole light pollution field, I think. I simply read this to you. I know you can read, but there is little reliable evidence that the presence of light deters criminals. Most break-ins occur during broad daylight. Why? Well, first of all, because the criminal can see what he or she is doing. And secondly, of course, when our premise is most likely to be empty, or when the people who live in them are out at work during broad daylight. Vandals and burglars regularly target brightly lit premises. Next time you see the report on the television, local news perhaps, of a break-in, possibly even murders or something like this, and they show you a picture of the premises, have a really good look at it, because you will probably see a security light stuck on the front wall. There was a terrible case recently of a jeweller who lived in Leeds in England, and he came out of his house when he heard people fiddling about in the drive, trying to disable the alarm system, etc., and they killed the man on his front doorstep. He lay dead on the drive, and they showed the terrible scene with the man's body covered in the canvas, and there was a closed-circuit television camera and an illuminated light. I don't know whether the light protected the man or whether it helped the people to see the target, but certainly it's an interesting thing. People often say, we must have bright white lights because then people in the street can see the person approaching them and they can assess a threat. We don't want to be mugged, obviously, in the street, and so if we can identify the person coming towards us, we can possibly take some kind of preventive, evasive action. Now, hang on. Most of us don't think like criminals. If there are any criminals in the audience, apologies, but we don't think like you. So I'm a mugger. I'm a mean, vicious scumbag who wants to attack you and steal your money. So there's this big bright white light, and I can see you 200 meters away. And I can see that you are a little old lady with a handbag. You're not a 2.5 meter high rugby player. And I will attack you. So it works both ways. Everybody needs to see. Nice people, nasty people, they all need to see. And there is one school of thought, think about it. Darkened premises are in fact safer. A torch flashing in the dark is more suspicious than a person moving about in a lit space. If you see a person moving about in a lit space, what do? Nothing. It's quite normal. You just ignore it. But if you see somebody flashing a torch around a darkened house, you might well think twice. So there we are. And I'll finish that one with a simple quotation from Bill Eaves, one of our Scottish local officers. The campaign has 140 local officers. Who benefits most from a back garden light at 3 a.m.? Is it the resident fast asleep indoors, the police officer miles away, or the burglar sorting out his tools under the light? Martin is that photo again. He's seen this so many times. He took it. I think you took this with a delayed action camera or something, didn't you? Yeah. This burglar here is actually sitting in the front row there, so be careful of him. Yeah. This is lighting the scene. If you must have a light, if it makes you feel better, great. I will fight to the death for your right to arrange your premises as you will. But light the scene instead of lighting the retinas of oncoming witnesses and friends. One of the worst things is to go to somebody's house and be blinded as you approach it. What a lovely welcome that is. And is an interior light on a timer a better deterrent than an outside light if you're not in? And the answer is yes, of course. Well, probably the best solution is a large, vicious dog, but not everybody likes dogs. How much energy is wasted by excessive and poorly aimed lights? Well, a single 100-watt bulb burning all night long for 1 year creates 1/4 ton of carbon dioxide, a major greenhouse gas. The carbon dioxide produced by 500-watt domestic floodlights, what we in the campaign call Rottweiler lights, The carbon dioxide produced by all these lights is statistically similar to that produced by the car usage of a town of 114,000 people. Thanks, Martin, for that one. And Chris Baddeley, one of our more scientific supporters, calculates that at least one power station's worth of electricity is wasted every year by upward light. Andrej Mohar, you'll hear from him later, in Slovenia, and his colleagues calculate that Europe alone sends £1.5 billion, that's 1.7 billion euros, skywards every year in the form of wasted light. This does not include the useful light that goes to the ground. This is wasted light. Now remember, this is not 1.5 million. It's 1,000 times more than that. 1.5 billion. There is a statistic to use. I have seen politicians' jaws drop at this figure. It would cover their expenses. Is light nuisance against the law? Well, John's mentioned the Clean Neighbourhood Act. I don't need to go into it all again. If you're not from the UK, you can, of course, talk about your own specific laws. There are places such as Slovenia, Lombardy, etc., which have some very good ordinances in place. And if Slovenia and Liechtenstein... Liechtenstein? It's about the size of a football field, isn't it? Yeah. I hope there's nobody here from Liechtenstein, because I'm about to make a joke about it. They say, why is Liechtenstein the warmest country in Europe? Because it's nearly all indoors. Okay. Quiz time. Here we go. Spot the odd one out. Beautiful field of wildflowers. Beach, sea, sand. Village street. Field of oilseed rape or something. The night sky. Woodland scene with beautiful sparkling stream. I bet you can spot the odd one out. If you dump rubbish in that field of wildflowers, you go to prison for 5 years. You can be fined £50,000. That's the maximum penalty for such things in the United Kingdom. If you dump oil on that beach, if you discharge the tanks of your vessel into the sea and destroy the beach, you can be fined millions and millions of pounds. You can lose your ship. You can go to prison. If you do this to a village street, you can be fined £2,500. If you destroy crops for political motives or whatever, you may or may not agree with the person in the funny mask, but all sorts of things can happen to you. Criminal damage has penalties, which no doubt include fines and being locked away. And if you do that to the beautiful stream and dump rubbish into it, again, you can go to prison for years. And yet, if you do this to the night sky, nobody can touch you. This is one of the glaring, if you'll pardon the pun, this is one of the glaring exceptions in British law that, you can dump a fridge in a field and go to prison. You can dump light in the sky, take away people's heritage, take away what has been a wonder to human beings for the last 500,000 years, and nobody can touch you. The only part of our environment with no protection in law. Now, if we use... I took that one in Belgium. Friedel may well know this road, I don't know. If we use downward directed street lamps like this, surely they'll have to be closer together because the spread of light is less. And the answer is no, this is rubbish. I have this from the mouths of 2 past presidents of the Institution of Lighting Engineers. The spread of light from such a lamp is not necessarily determined by the lens at the bottom, by the glass at the bottom and the nature of it. It is determined by the optics inside the lamp, the column height, and 1 or 2 other factors. My road was relit recently with full cut-off lights like this. They are closer together. And I did argue with the local authority, but they wouldn't listen to me. I said, you don't need 15, you still need 11. Nope, they put 15 lamps in. But the main road near my house, They just took off the old lamps and replaced them with those. And the effect is exactly the same. There is no non-uniform lighting. The whole road is perfectly lit, and you can stand between the columns and you can read the small print on a credit card halfway between two lamps. The spread of light is good. They are marvellous lamps. They do not need to be closer together. This is rubbish. Could it be because the standards for spacing are set by the people who actually make and design the lamps? No, that's too cynical. Surely street lamps are designed by experts. Well, if you're from Belfast, you'll know all about that one. That was designed by experts. Experts designed the Titanic. Directionality has been the poor relation in lamps. Most electrical things do exactly what they say. Hair dryers, they dry your hair. Toasters, they make toast. Cookers, they cook. Way. But lamps very often don't do what they're supposed to do. They do far more than they're supposed to do. Typical Rottweiler here, which lights 10 times as much area as it needs to, which wastes vast amounts of energy. And the laughable globe light, well, words fail me. What can you do to counter light pollution? Well, set a good example. Don't do it yourself. Poole Borough Council, Southern England. Website, we are green. We love the environment. Poole, it's a beautiful place. Come and visit our lovely green, and around the Civic Centre, there are, just like Stormont, dozens of globe lights. They floodlight the Civic Centre throughout the hours of night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, when there is nobody around, the Civic Centre in Poole is beautifully lit. I've told them about this. They don't reply. Approach people with rotten lights and explain the issue. Be polite. And it's amazing that most people who cause a problem with lights do not know they're causing a problem. Somebody in Scotland did a survey. 80% of people approached about bad lighting were willing to do something about it. They did not realise they were causing a problem. They were embarrassed. They took action. Praise good lighting schemes. We must not be seen as a clique of moaners who just whinge about everything all the time, who cannot be satisfied. Reward good lighting. Give awards. Make sure that local press, etc., know about this. And try some of the courses of action on the website of the Campaign for Dark Skies. If you live in the UK, be a local officer. We haven't got very many in Northern Ireland at the moment. Could do with a few more. Donate to the Fighting Fund. You could always buy one of our newsletters from the table out there. And go to schools and scout groups and adult groups and tell them about this. Offer talks. There are many, many groups who want speakers. They fish around for speakers. They are desperate for speakers. Offer them. If you can speak in public, talk to these people and tell them about the waste of energy and money. They won't be interested in the stars probably, but they will be interested in their wallets. And if you want to find out more, question 10, I think, then, ask us, ask the IDA on www.darksky.org, and look at this marvellous website, Need Less. I'll show you the person responsible for it in a moment, and that's got some really good images and things that you can copy and use. You might even buy this excellent book. Right. There's Dan Nixon. He's the Need Less website man. This man is a genius. He is young. He is a genius. He makes fantastic images and graphics. Use this man. Employ this man. You will find some really brilliant stuff. And what about the future? Well, you know as well as I do, it can be one or the other. In spite of what Orange tell us, that the future is orange, perhaps it shouldn't be. And perhaps if you're wondering why you're here, because you might say, well, I've been to 6, 7, 8 of these symposia. What really do they achieve? They do achieve a few ripples of publicity. I know politicians who, for example, Robert Key MP, who spoke in Portsmouth in 2006, who are now talking about light pollution regularly because they've been to these conferences. People will come away from here and spread the word, even though you might not realise it. But one of the greatest things to me about going to these symposia is that it inspires me, because of the power of your thoughts, etc., inspires me to carry on campaigning for the beautiful night sky. And why do we do it? We do it for this person here. Here is the Einstein, the Marie Curie of the 21st century, who may never be interested in science if he or she cannot see anything in the night sky, but they may also look at the beauties of a real night sky and say to themselves, hey, I'm going to be a scientist. Is that the cure for cancer in that person's mind? Is that the cure for global warming? Is it the great scientist of the future? Well, if they can see the night sky, it might well mean that the answer is yes. So keep on fighting, because it really matters. Thank you. That child might even be the next man on the moon. Woman on the moon.
Ah, right. Bob, you've answered 10 questions. Are there any further questions? One here.
Just a comment, Bob. On the crime prevention through lighting, I think part of the problem is there's an industry around this, and there are people employed as crime prevention officers, for example, and they have to say something, and they can't say, well, I don't know, crime's a bit of a sticky problem. So they come up like quacks of old, really, with kind of a sort of some
Well, I do know police forces who recommend good, powerful lights, etc. They do this in Dorset. It's not my local police force. They are quite wise on this. But in North Dorset, for example, they do recommend lighting farms. And recently, and I was talking about this to one of you last night, recently somebody stole a combine harvester. How do you steal a combine harvester? It does 2 miles an hour. It's noisy. And they stole it because it was floodlit. It was floodlit. Hey, here's a combine harvester, Come and get it. Yeah. So you're right. People want to be seen to be active against crime. Good. This is marvellous. Everybody should be active against crime. But, if it simply consists in parroting unproven theories, then perhaps they ought to start revising their thoughts.
Yes.
I noticed in your presentation you're primarily concerned with fixed lighting, both public and private.
Yes.
One of the largest sources of sky glow are car headlights.
This is certainly something that we don't talk about half enough. Obviously, car headlights do need to shine slightly upwards, because if you're going under a low bridge or something like this, or there's a power cable above your truck, then you do need to see it. So can anybody talk about this? Because I don't really see a great solution. I mean, you cannot really have car headlights that only shine downwards, can you?
If I may interject, the French had a very good idea back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
They had the yellow headlights.
I remember that, yeah. I remember that.
Because the eye is sensitive to yellow light, and so you don't need a great amount of illumination in order to see the road. And they don't glare in your eyes like those damn BMWs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Blue lights.
Yeah. Well, they're fashion accessories, aren't they? They're fashion accessories. You've got to have the sparkly blue lights that make you think it's a police car at a great distance. Yeah. And I remember I lived in France in the early 1960s, and most lights were yellow then. And as you went along in a car, the French driver would say, oh, there's a foreigner, because they had white lights. Yeah.
Hey, Terry?
Martin.
Go ahead.
Terry first and then Martin.
Just before everybody makes the joke, though I'm not old enough to remember it, but surely during the war they had shielding on headlights in vehicles, so the light can shine up so the body on the road couldn't see them.
Yes, and it's a sad fact that the number of road deaths increased vastly when they made car headlights into little slits. It's just a fact, I'm afraid. So.
But was that due to the reduced illumination or the fact that it wasn't shining upwards? Or was it
I don't know.
general social milieu of the war where people were sort of, I was concerned about life and death?
No, I think it's probably because the drivers couldn't see the people. I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Martin?
Yeah, building on this point you just raised about car headlights, I think it's absolutely critical, really, to sort of address this. The points you just made with these very glaring, these new sorts of headlights which are coming in. which in the UK are sold in shops as 30% brighter.
Oh, yeah.
Well, isn't that practically full bait? Isn't this yet another example of brighter is better because it's brighter? Now, I actually cycle to work. Now, I actually wear one of these fluorescent jackets, and I've got bright LED lights as well. But nevertheless, I'm actually quite concerned that somebody might not see me on my push bike with this fluorescent coat on, because the car's going past next to me with these very glaring, they're smaller light sources, aren't they? Much more glaring. They seem to change colour so they can distract your attention. Again, I think this is a prime example of brighter is better. Because it's brighter, it's got to be better, hasn't it? And I wrote to the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents in England to say, is there any empirical research or anything that's being done to see whether or not these are actually more dangerous? And they just wrote back saying, no, basically. They didn't seem to be interested. So that was about a couple of years ago when these lights were coming in, and I thought maybe I need to write to them again.
Okay. Well, let's thank Bob once again and then move on to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.